I know how to stand up to a man. I'm defenseless against that kind of female insanity.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show live. That would be, nope, not Sundays. It would be Wednesdays, which would be today, at 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. And you can support this project at eplex.store. Right now, memberships are half off for the first month. So it's like a Patreon-like membership where you, I don't know, get our shows zapped to you before they hit the podcasts. And members, there's some members-only Pride content in there that isn't coming out for everybody else until the 15th. This month's theme is Rainbow Disco, or this year's theme for Pride is Rainbow Disco Goats. So I think you probably want those, and I'll show a couple of those items off during Red Light. I'm producer Dave, and you can still find me on Grindr for the time being.
And I am HK Perrin, and you can find me on Mastodon at hperrin at port87.social.
Well, I mean, you see what we're watching. You can see it on the screen. Here, actually, let me make it nice and big for you so that you can, I will embigify it for you. You can see it even bigger.
Oh, thank you. Yes. That's what I definitely need is a bigger Jordan Peterson.
And Konstantin Kisin and some dude I've never seen before, but he looks like he might be the one that fires you at your corporate job. I think he's some kind of lawyer. This is, episode 442 of the Jordan Peterson podcast. Listen up. I can't do it yet. I haven't had any alcohol. I can't do a Jordan Peterson impression sober. Listen up, Canada. Everything you need to know about C-63. Just for some point of reference here, Jordan Peterson became famous lying about a Canadian Bill C-16. So we'll see what he has to say about Canadian Bill C-63. And I guess, like, I would apologize, but whatever. People came, they knew they kind of knew what they were in for by coming to the show.
The ethos of managerialism has supplanted the rule of law.
Wait, what?
As the basic idea. Instead of the rule of law, we have rule by law now, which means that the law is nothing more than a tool. That's agile government. It means the legislature is not taking.
What the fuck does that mean? That's not even a difference.
And the executive branch has taken over.
And what is this room?
Rules and enforcing the rules, all on its own. And that is.
I don't think they finished the walls in that room.
You know, Jordan Peterson's goon cave.
The Western legal system used to work.
Some might call this show pretentious. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Every time he does that, he just like sits there. It's like it's not even a real person. Then it starts moving, and it never becomes less unsettling when he starts his show. It just never gets less unsettling.
Today to speak with two guests, Konstantin Kizin, who is co-host of the podcast Trigonometry in the UK, popular
Well, that'd be the best episode ever, is them just pretending to talk to somebody that isn't there.
podcast.
Them interviewing an empty chair.
And a thinker.
Well,
deals
I mean, to be fair, non-Oliver is a bit of an empty chair.
with culture war issues, mostly political, insofar as the cultural war issues are political. My other guest is Bruce Party. Bruce is a professor at Queen's University, a professor of law at Queen's University in Canada. Recently, the Trudeau woke mob has managed to extend themselves even further into the legal Netherlands with a new bill called C-63.
I think he meant like the legal nether regions, but he just named a country.
Yeah, the legal Netherlands.
Right?
What?
There's a country called that, and it is legally the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Pretty woke, too.
Is Canada trying to legislate the Netherlands?
I hope
Canada
not.
yet, but is soon likely to be. And it is the most totalitarian Western bill I've ever seen by quite a large margin and in multiple dimensions. And that was my conclusion upon reading it, and then my conclusion upon rereading it and rereading it again, because I like to make sure I have these things right. And I thought I'd talk to Bruce about it today, along with Konstantin, to see if my understanding of the bill is actually correct with regard to Konstantin, how he sees
50-50 Constantine hasn't even read it.
what's happening in Canada reflected in, say, Scotland and in Ireland in particular, in the UK, but also in England. And, well, that's the terrain that we're exploring. So join us. It'll be quite a ride.
That sure sounds exciting. He's like,
That was like the most unenthusiastic I've ever seen him be.
Yeah, that's the worst let's go I've ever seen. Right.
So enjoy the ride, everybody, I guess.
Maybe he's finally actually off the wagon. Who knows? Or on the wagon? Who knows?
So, Dr. Party, I think we got in touch with each other again most recently because I was obsessing neurotically about a new Canadian bill, C-63, which seemed to me to be a real masterpiece of right-thinking, utopian, resentful foolishness. And I thought it would be real useful to talk to you about that to make sure that I understood it. And but I thought I'd start our discussion, or we could start a discussion today by going back into the past 8 years into the legal domain in Canada to discuss Bill C-16, because that's now 8 years ago.
And none of what he said was going to happen has happened at all, even a little bit.
And
Yep.
and in some ways, the bill.
Well, he did lose his job, but not because of the bill, but because he went insane.
Well, no. I mean, his job, he mostly just quit that, right? You're not like, he's like professor emeritus.
Yeah,
now.
he lost.
You're not talking about his job was, his job is like talking head, but he lost his, or I guess he's probably going, I don't know if that already went through. He's going to lose his license to practice clinical psychology. My take on it is if you haven't seen patients in fucking 8 years, then your license should just lapse anyway. You're not using it.
Yeah.
But I mean, whatever.
Current rat's nest of pathological legislation in Canada. And so do you want to bring everybody up to date just to begin with, or remind them or educate them about what Bill C-16 was and what the fears were at the time and whether or not those have been realized?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Jordan. Well, C-16 is when you and I met. And you were concerned, as I was and as others were, not very many others, mind you, but a few others, concerned that these proposed amendments to the Canadian Human Rights Act, the inclusion of gender identity and gender expression, would have an effect upon speech. essentially to require people to use the preferred pronouns of other people. And frankly, the establishment types poo-pooed the idea.
Not to require people, but to require government employees.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's like a similar California law too, where in certain circumstances, like your fucking landlord and shit too.
Yeah. So that would be akin to me saying people are required to perform gay marriages. Right. No, government employees are required to do that.
Right. And only specific employee. This only comes up in like certain circumstances. I think Jordy Pete was mad because at the time he was technically employed by the government. He was working at a government university.
And of course, that's turned out to be entirely untrue. You were exactly right in your concerns. That kind of amendment had been made before in provincial human rights codes, but this was the federal version. But that's in there now, and we have all kinds of pronoun trouble. But the present bill that you referred to, C-63, is C-16 on steroids. It's got 3 categories of bad in it. One's an administrative bad, one is a criminal code bad, criminal law bad, and the other one is, again, like C-16, a Canadian Human Rights Act amendment. So let me do the last one first.
And so what's the purported purpose of the law?
Well, the purported purpose, it starts with the cover of protecting children.
Right.
From online harm. That's the first administrative law.
And who could possibly oppose that?
This is part of the beauty of the way they go about these things. It's got great cover, and nobody in their right mind would want to come out and say, well, that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. But what that kind of cover enables is basically a crackdown on the very idea of free speech. So let's just take the human rights aspect first. They are returning to the Canadian Human Rights Act, an old section that got thrown out, got repealed during the era of Stephen Harper, when Harper was the prime minister. And it was causing all kinds of nuisance. It was the kind of section, and these kinds of sections also appear in...
I wonder why. I think this guy and Jordan Peterson are such good friends, because I don't think this guy's ever going to get to the fucking point. And I think Jordan Peterson really appreciates that in a friend.
So I looked up this bill, and it seems like the bill is all about like how quickly social media platforms have to take down child sex abuse material.
Oh.
So I don't understand why they have a problem with that.
I mean, that's what it says, but they're actually it's actually designed to throw Jordan Peterson in gulag.
Oh, okay.
You have to read between the lines. HK.
Okay. Codes. Every province and the federal government has their own human rights code, and these codes, not all of them, but typically include this kind of restriction on speech. You're not allowed to discriminate in your speech, is what some of them say.
Wait, what?
And this section basically says that if you use hateful speech that can be taken to vilify an individual or group, then you will be acting discriminatorily and therefore in breach of the code and therefore potentially liable to any of the perceived victims and also potentially to the government itself. And one of the problems with the human rights regime is that complaints can be made very, very easily without a lawyer, without any cost. And because the Canadian federal government has jurisdiction over...
Wait, if it's like... Yeah, you should be able to like redress your grievances about anything with the government without having to fucking pay a fee or hire a lawyer. What's the fucking problem?
I think he means that if you're not a millionaire, it should be much harder for you to express any sort of grievance to the government.
The internet,
which I would disagree with,
is going to authorize complaints of all kinds to be made against people who are speaking their minds online about any and everything. So it's going to have a chilling effect upon speech, no question about it. You put that together with the criminal code amendments. Those criminal code amendments make it, well, they do several things. Here's one extraordinary thing that it does. It makes the sentence, the maximum sentence for any violation of an offense, like any offense in the criminal code or under federal legislation, any offense that is motivated by hatred will carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment.
Right.
Now, the defenders of the bill say, well, don't worry, the judge isn't actually going to give you life. That's not likely to happen. And that may be true, but that's not the point. If you don't mean it in legislation, then don't give the judge the power.
If it's in the law, it's likely to happen.
If it's in the law, it is going to happen sooner or later, and it is a signal about what is lawful and what is not, and what the proper punishment should be and what is not. So, C-63 is a reflection of how, just one more reflection of how we are losing the law. We are losing in C-63 the idea of free speech itself. You know that old quote that people always refer to from Voltaire's biographer, the one that goes, I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I think the reason that quote is trotted out so often is that when you come right down to it, most people don't agree with that. Everybody says they believe in free speech. Everybody.
Well, I'm not going to die for somebody else's free speech. I think it's figurative. I don't like. I don't think even the original the quote. Well, the quote very well could be fucking apocryphal too. You know, or the guy could have stolen the quote from someone else. Like,
I think the idea is that you would fight for like the rights that your country offers, not specifically one person's free speech.
Right.
But I think a problem that he's not really addressing this, and I only know about the United States. I don't really know Canada's laws, but I'm assuming Canada's laws are the same, where a person doesn't have an absolute right to free speech, period. Never. Like, no one has an absolute right to free speech. You can't go and hire a hitman. Like, you're only speaking words, but you can't do that because that's a crime. Conspiracy is a crime that's committed through speaking. So that is not protected speech. That's the way it works in America. There's like protected speech, and
fraud involves talking to somebody, generally talking them into something too.
Yeah, like there are crimes that you can commit that only involve you saying words out loud, generally to other people.
Lying to a federal investigator, what Martha Stewart got busted for, is a crime.
Yeah. So, this idea that like, oh, if we make it a crime to say words to other people, then we're losing our free speech, and that's gonna, we're gonna lose our country. Like, no, we have never had absolute free speech. That's not what the First Amendment in the U.S. is for, and I'm assuming Canada has something similar to that.
I think they call them free.
And I'm assuming that's not what that's for either.
I think they call them free expression laws.
Okay, so yeah, it's it's not for absolute free speech.
I also you would think that by this point the attorney, I think this is a law professor, would have told you like basically what the three different things that he says are like. You know what I'm saying? He said there's three parts to the law, but he jumped straight to the interpretation, like his interpretation of it, and didn't give you like a 2-sentence overview of what the law says, or you know what I'm saying? Like, you would think that like a law professor would be able to just give you the the elevator pitch or whatever for what these three provisions in this bill are supposed to be. But I'm not sure. I think they're just whining.
Yeah, Dave, that's not how you fearmonger.
Has said he believes in free speech. There's a guarantee of free speech in the Chinese constitution.
Right.
It's very easy to say. And what they really mean is, yes, I believe in free speech, but.
Yeah.
And it's within the but where you can find out whether or not they really do believe in free speech. So for my money, we shouldn't have.
So every country is that way. There's not a country in the world that has absolute free speech.
That's correct. And again, your example of calling somebody and telling them to kill somebody else. Now you both committed the murder. Oopsie.
Yep.
But that prohibits hate speech.
Yeah.
Hate speech is ugly, but people hate each other. And if they're not allowed to say that they do, well, then their speech is not free. So
It's also a very difficult and challenging thing to make an emotion illegal. So
no doubt, and of course, the definition of what they mean by hate speech
we'll get to that.
It's impossible to tell, and it's going to be under the purview of the judge to decide in any particular case whether or not you've crossed that threshold.
Okay, so let's talk about the devil in the details, because the angel lurking over all of this is fundamentally we're protecting children from being exploited online. Okay, so well, there are children and they are exploited online and they deserve protection, so that's all and good. What steps are taken in the bill to actually protect children who are being exploited online?
Right.
And then how do we segue from that to hate? Like, because those aren't the same universe.
There's, as I say, there are 3 bits in the bill, and they're.
Rick, could you give us an overview, please, of the 3 bits before you get into the details? Like, I'm not giving an overview on this, and I think it's important that we don't, because this is Jordan Peterson's friend, apparently a law professor. Are we going to get to the overview or no? You think he's ever going to give us an overview of what these 3 provisions are?
I don't think so. I would consider myself less informed about this bill than I was before we started this episode. And before we started this episode, I didn't know of the existence of this bill.
Same bill, but they're distinct. So there's the human rights aspect, there's the criminal code aspect, and then this third aspect, which is primarily one that's aimed at the protecting kids, is an administrative regime that gives an agency the power essentially to supervise the online platforms. But it also gives them the power to make the rules. So we don't even know what the rules are going to be. Basically, it just gives the whole control of the thing to a government agency, to the bureaucrats, to do as they think best.
Right.
In the name
they're
of
establishing an entirely new bureaucracy.
Exactly. Yes.
With an unspecified range of power, with a non-specific purview that
I like how Constantine's just sitting there. He's like, whatever.
to protect children from online exploitation, but has the possibility of turning into a policing state for the internet.
So, Dave,
and this is often how the administrative.
Could you imagine how horrifying it would be if there were some sort of government body that were in charge of like overseeing the kind of content that were distributed on some sort of medium?
You mean like the Federal Communications Commission?
I have no idea what that is.
Also,
literally, we've had this same exact thing for TV and radio for like over 100 years.
Right. And
about 100 years.
Right. And
might be less. I don't know.
The other thing here is like I'm sure the FCC charter is such that the FCC can make regulation and adjust the course on their mission as times change, right? Otherwise it would be stuck in 100 years ago where you couldn't even fart on the radio, and like who wants to live in that world?
And I do realize that that's an American thing, the FCC, and this is a Canadian bill, but again, I'm pretty sure Canada has something similar where you're not allowed to like display porn on broadcast TV.
Right. And to be clear, this part of the bill they're talking about is specifically it's about child exploitation material on the internet, and they're ramping up apparently a bureaucracy to maybe levy fines or give warnings or interface with some of these social media companies about this problem. I don't see what the fuck, like, what the charter is. Man, this guy's like, oh, they're just going to fucking regulate the whole internet. And it's like, well, that doesn't even by their own description of the bill, to the extent that they've given one, that's not what it says. Like,
work, administrative state works, right? So this,
and again, also, it doesn't regulate you outside of the social media platform. So like, you can say whatever you want standing on the corner of a street, but like, you can't blast it out on a platform to, millions of people. And
also, this material they're talking about is already illegal. And so this is just an organization probably just to fine Twitter for not taking the shit down, right? I mean, that's probably going to be their job.
citizens themselves directly, but they'll be policing the online platforms, and the platforms will thereby censor the people who are using them. So it's a we're not doing it. We're hands off. We're 2 steps removed situation. But in effect, it is the government pulling the strings of the.
Okay, so to what degree do you think that even the setup of that new administrative bureaucracy, which has very extensive powers and very poorly defined powers, as far as I could tell when I read the bill,
Yes.
how much of that do you think is actually devoted genuinely? I know this is a judgment call, obviously, but you have to infer that from the legislation.
Right.
If the legislation was honest and well written, it would very specifically target the target of its purported
Is he going to
reason for existence.
malfunction? What's happening?
Right.
Yes.
If it was designed, for example, to produce a more general regime for online policing, to me, that's what it looks like. And if so, is that a consequence of poor legislative design? Is it a consequence of intent? Like, what do you think's going on there?
Well, what's going on there is what's been going on inside our law with respect to.
I do find it weird that like the conservatives, which used to be, the party of like making it illegal to rent a copy of South Park to a 16-year-old, is now like, no, we need to keep the internet like perfectly hate speech full,
Well, and in this case,
disregarding everyone that hurts.
well, I mean, I'm also, against the government, maybe regulating to that extent, what you're allowed to say, but social media platforms can just kick you off. I mean, like, fuck it. But this again is not about like this stuff. This is about CSAM, right? This is about child sexual abuse material, and like this is a place where this is a place where the government should step in and fine companies if they're not removing this kind of content very quickly.
Yes. And I assume that's what the bill's about, but he did mention that there's like extra parts about like protecting children from hate speech.
Oh.
In the bill, which in that case, I don't think that would be the worst thing, is like, protecting people from being exposed to like violent hate speech on these platforms that host content from billions of users. Like if you want to do that on your own website that you pay for, I don't see that as a problem, but like I do feel like Facebook has some sort of social responsibility to not actively disseminate hate speech to millions of people every day.
Right. Well, then the difference here too is the difference between adults viewing it and minors viewing it, right? I think.
Yeah.
So who knows?
That have stayed for a long, long time, right? So standard legislation now at either the federal or provincial level is authorizing legislation, meaning you pass a bill about a certain subject and it might contain some rules in it, but it also contains the authority, the delegation of authority to the bureaucrats, to an agency of some kind, to the minister or to whoever, to a Human Rights Commission, to make policies or guidelines or regulations about certain things. And you can't tell by reading the statute what the rules are. Right. And so you've transferred legislative authority essentially from the legislature to the bureaucracy. And
so the way this works in the United States is the Congress has oversight of many of these agencies. Some of them have oversight from the executive branch, and they're all subject to challenges in the courts. Actually, that's the way it works in the United States. And I presume, again, that Canada is not going to be totally dissimilar because it's not on another planet. In fact, it's right next door to us and very much like America in a lot of ways.
There was also, I think it was a Supreme Court case, right, where basically one of the justices, in their opinion, in answering the question of, like, how do you define porn, their answer was basically, I don't know, but I know it when I see it.
Right. And I mean, that's fine. That's fine. But that's why these, and I mean, it's kind of a shitty answer, but that's why these agencies would hopefully hire people who are experienced in, for example, in this case, child development and unfortunately, the ways in which child exploitation material is disseminated on the internet, right?
Mm.
So that's why maybe it's a little more open-ended, but this organization they're talking about is still going to be subject to oversight by any number of democratic, probably just by the fucking parliament or whatever. Like, it's fine. You can't, otherwise you have your members of Congress or parliament or whatever, like micromanaging every part of the government. Every time some policy changes, you have to put it in front of Congress. Man, nothing gets done anyway. I don't know how it is in Canada, but nothing fucking gets done here. Imagine the amount of nothing that would get done every time they were oh, we're going to hire 10 more people. They're I got to ask Congress, or we're going to allocate this money this way. Oh, got to ask Congress. I mean, that sounds terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as bad as us just having to vote on everything every 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the bureaucracy stealing it. This is the legislature giving it, because they don't want the responsibility of doing it, and they don't want to have to go through the minutia of figuring out what the right rules are. So they just shove it off into the back rooms, and this is the way the administrative state works. Now, it's if I can say, it's a kind of collusion between the legislature and the courts. So the courts. Okay, we have these three branches of government. Yes, we have the legislature.
It kind of sounds like he's just describing a model of an organization having autonomy, but with oversight. Just like you were saying, where Congress has oversight to these organizations in the United States. And to a certain extent, the state governments have that same model where, you give the state legislature autonomy, but then it has oversight through the state judiciary and through things like ballot initiatives, where even directly the people can oversee their own governing body.
Right. He's also positing just a version of the deep state here, right? He's well, these are unelected bureaucrats, and that's the deep state conspiracy theory. And to the extent when he says that when they say this, they mean the fucking middle management or something. Somebody who's been in the US, they have been working for the FDA for 25 years, and they're now in a senior management position. Sure, they've never been elected, but fucking I don't want to vote for everybody who works for the FDA. That sounds imagine how long your ballot would be. You'd be I don't know, there were 37 applicants for this one thing, and I don't even know any of them. I don't know anything about these. Are just private citizens who want to go want to go do data entry at the fucking the fucking EPA. Why am I voting on this?
And we have the administrative state, and the division between them is cleanest in the American version of things, but in Canada and the UK, we have them as well. And the legislature and the courts are together supposed to be supervising what the executive branch, the administrative state, is doing. Because the general rule is supposed to be the administration, which used to be the king after all, can't do anything that's not authorized.
Ooh, I wonder, are they pro or against just bringing the king back? That's a fucking coin toss if you ask me. I guess it depends who the king is and how woke he is. If we bring back the woke king, they'd be pissed.
By the legislature. Okay, so these three things are checks and balances on each other.
Yeah.
But now they're all on the same page. And the courts and the legislature are convinced about the need for this expansive, overwhelming administrative state.
Watch Constantine just get up and walk off. He's I don't even know why you invited me here.
Yeah, has he said a single word?
No, but whatever. Hopefully he's getting paid. Fuck it. I mean, I don't like Constantine, but he should be getting at least $100 an hour just to sit there.
And so instead of supervising the administrative branch and the courts, instead of making sure that they stick within their powers, the legislature's delegating to it and the courts are deferring to it. And so what we end up with,
the legislators don't have to take responsibility
exactly
in either way,
because we can't find who's responsible anymore.
Yeah,
right. It's all sort of a mystery. It's a moving ball. And this is the way administrative agencies and government departments and ministries can be, quote, agile. They want to be agile. They want to be able to respond to societal problems quickly. Right? Well, if you're able to respond quickly, that means you have the legislative power in your hands. And that nobody else knows exactly what's going on until it happens. And sometimes not until after the fact, even. Right? So that principle of the rule of law that said the rule applies to everybody, both the ruled and the ruler. If you have an agile government making rules up as they go along, well, that means by definition, the rules can't apply to them because they have the power to change.
Wait, isn't government just the process of making up the rules as you go along? Like if you really want to, if you really want to make it just kind of dumb.
Yes, that is government. Yes,
Governments of all types, they do in fact make up the rules as they go along. I feel like there's no other way to do it. I mean, you could set some foundational rules, but some of those might even be wrong. You might have to change those later.
And those are actually like made up as you're going along.
Right, they're just
when
made
you
up
start
earlier.
the country.
Yeah, they're just made up earlier. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
They got made up at some
Starting
point.
the country is going along, and you're making up the rules as you're going along.
Like, how else are you supposed to do it?
Yeah.
I guess the only other way is to have a theocracy and just base it on fucking God or whatever. But even that, somebody made that
that's
shit
still
up.
made up.
Yeah, they made that shit up. God had to have made it up as they were going along too, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the only other way to do it would be to like randomize your rules. You know what I'm saying? Like just have some method of like, I guess, rolling dice for deciding everything. Like Calvin
Whatever
Ball.
they want to. And so we have agile governments who are managing us, managing society, solving social
No, I guess
problems.
Calvin
We are
Ball
in
is
a
more like capitalism.
managerial era in the law. Management, I would put it this way. Management, the ethos of managerialism has supplanted the rule of law as the basic idea. Instead of the rule of law, we have rule by law now, which means that the law is nothing more than a tool for the government to use to create on a whim, whenever they need it to make you do this. And there was no better example of all of this than during COVID.
oh, here we go. Of course, it was during COVID. But even like legislation, you could just decide that even it took a while to get Obamacare passed, right? To get the Affordable Care and Patient Protection Act passed. You can just call that on a whim. You can just decide that whatever it is on a whim.
Yep. Yeah, just made up on a whim. Yeah, no one ever thinks about the rules. They just kind of like, spitball.
It's all on a whim, just making it up as we go along.
You had people standing behind microphones on a Tuesday afternoon saying, well, the rule tomorrow is going to be this. That's agile government. It means the legislature is not taking on its role of making the rules. And
I feel like he might be being facetious here.
I don't think so.
Would you say he's being just a tad facetious?
I don't think
Just
so.
a bit hyperbolic?
Hyperbolic maybe, but not facetious. It also almost implies like sarcasm.
Well, he's making this ridiculous scenario where someone's deciding rules on a daily basis. Like that's ridiculous. That's
he's
not in the law. That's not going to happen. It's ridiculous.
He's retconning what happened during COVID.
Okay.
has taken over, making the rules, applying the rules, and enforcing the rules, all on its own. And that is not the way the Western legal system used to work. We have managerialism instead of the rule of law.
I mean, the way it used to work is there was one guy at the top who decided all the rules.
Right. And even to the extent that we that some countries started letting people have a say, it just kind of depended on who you thought was people.
Mm-hmm.
And which kind of people got to have a say.
Yeah, exactly. When is the used to you're talking about?
Anything so far in Bruce's discussion that's triggered any echoes about similar situations in the UK?
Well, there's a couple of pieces that I would pick up.
Oh my
on
God,
that I think are
Constantine is
relevant.
there.
And speaking.
UK.
Well, there's a couple of pieces that I would pick up on that I think are relevant. And the first one is what you mentioned about the fact that the bill is quite expansive, yet only a small part of it appears to be dealing with the core issue. which is the protection of children. We had the online harms bill, which was ostensibly about the same thing, but in its original drafting included all sorts of other things completely unrelated to any of that. And it's not a surprise, because what we have seen over and over in the UK is that quite often the attempt to protect people from hate or whatever has actually nothing to do with the trigger that causes. So I'll give you an example. Sir David Ames was an MP who was murdered by a terrorist. And the next day, all his colleagues went into Parliament and started talking in Parliament about how this shows that we need to tackle online hate. Mm-hmm. David Ames wasn't killed by online hate. He was killed by an Islamist. Mm-hmm. Likewise, more recently, Parliament actually, to cut a very long story short, suspended its own rules of procedure.
Where do you think you are? Why are you cutting the long story short? What are you? The other people have been talking for 19 years, Constantine.
Also, like, terrorism is about hate. Oftentimes, I guess not always. I don't know. Terrorism is like, using violence in order to gain your political viewpoint, right? And like to achieve your political goals.
I think terrorism is when Muslim does bad thing.
Oh, okay. I had it wrong.
We should look it up.
I wasn't considering their religion. Okay.
Because Labour Party MPs feared what would happen to them if they did not vote the correct way on the Israel-Palestine conversation. And again, following the furore that broke out.
I do also think it's funny that they're kind of giving away the game here with regard to, like, I guess it's been a while since he mentioned it, but the idea of, like, using Protect the Children as a cover for like a bill that really is meant to do something else, like, that is something that the right does a lot. Like, conservatives, particularly in the United States, but I'm sure elsewhere, like the example that comes to mind is the bathroom bills that force trans people to use a bathroom that doesn't match their gender. It's always done, with the stated goal of protecting the children, when really you're just like forcing men into the women's room and women into the men's room.
Yeah, you should always. It doesn't actually matter who's proposing it. It's fine to have a healthy skepticism of any particular legislation that's like endeavoring to save the children. You should give it a good long read, maybe, because it's especially when it comes to like the internet, because the stuff they've done hasn't been effective. And I forget, was it SOPA, FOSTA? I forget which one it was. Ended up outlawing like personals ads on Craigslist, right?
Really?
Was it? Oh, SESTA FOSTA, I think it was, that did that.
Okay.
It didn't outlaw them, but it made it like so that Craigslist and Backpage, it was sort of no longer feasible for them to allow like personals ads.
Need to be nicer to each other instead of dealing with the fact that there was a mob outside Parliament who was intimidating the parliamentarians. So very often it seems to me that a lot of the time the mind has been made up that we need to deal with online hate, whatever that means. And then whatever happens is then used as an excuse to do that. Secondly,
that's got to be kind of in the nature of I think, how tyranny unfolds in the real world. It's something like there's a pre-commitment to a set of ideological axioms, and then whatever crisis comes along is just assimilated to that and used as a shoehorn to move it forward. And so, has there ever been a tyranny that's emerged spontaneously that didn't present itself to begin with as fostering security and improving civic health or public health, for that matter? The Nazis were improving public health like mad throughout the 1930s. I mean, some of that public health improvement was genuine. There's a fair bit of it that wasn't, but the cover story was really solid, right? And it was often compassion, even with the whole Nazi.
We're just gonna fucking leave this alone here. I'm not even want to get into this part. We're just going to leave this alone.
Asia that culminated in the Holocaust began with the language of compassion, right? So
Well, quite. And actually, the thing that really revealed
very
to me
much
how
did
of
not.
this is ideological was I was on a British program called Question Time, which you've been on. And what they do is they have a panel of guests. And before the main show starts, they do one question for discussion that is a warm-up that's not recorded. So people are a little bit more loose in that part of it. And the question at the time was, Donald Trump had just been unbanned from Facebook. Was this the right thing to do, whatever? And, they came to me, I made the deeply controversial point that I think the president of the most powerful country in the world should be allowed to speak in public. This didn't go down well. But what happened
But by the time he was unbanned from the Facebook, he was no longer the president.
Could you imagine how few other opportunities the president of the United States would have to speak to the public if they couldn't do it on Facebook?
So I could see a social network, social platform not banning world leaders just as like a if they deal in news or whatever, they'd be pulling down posts if the world leader is doing egregious things, but not banning them. But like I would say that policy would only make sense for it to extend until the fucking first day they're not that world leader anymore, and now they're just a fucking person.
Yeah, true.
Like if Jimmy Carter was wilding out and showing everybody his dick or something on Twitter, like, oh, sorry, you got to go, man. I don't care that you used to be the president, right? Like,
they went to the left-wing politician on the panel, the Labour politician on the panel, and she, without missing a beat, when they went to her, she went, "We must have the safest internet in the world." And to a round of applause. And what that signaled to me, I think, gentlemen, is that we have completely lost the battle over the way the conversation is being had in being able and willing to say some harm is a consequence of freedom, and that's a price that we're willing to pay. And I believe that until we get the conversation onto that footing, we're never going to win this argument.
So the UK actually has a pretty good tradition on free speech. They have that speaker's corner, right, where just all manner of wackadoodles can go out there with a megaphone and just talk to the people walking by. It's fairly near Parliament, and it's a high traffic area. Not owned and operated by Meta, for example. Like it's right. This is happening in the real world. It is a town square of a type. And I think one of the problems with this larger conversation is that people are not going to any sort of real town square and engaging maybe with their community, and they think that Twitter is the town square or Facebook is the town square, and that's not. That's a fucking computer program designed to serve you ads.
Yep, designed to keep you on the platform long enough to see a bunch of ads. And generally what it does to keep you on the platform is serve you content that makes you upset.
Right.
So the more upset you are, the more engagement you have, the more ads you'll see.
Right.
So it's not designed to be some bastion of free speech. It's designed to make you upset.
Right. Whereas at Speaker's Corner, you have no idea what the person's not there trying to upset you. You might be listening to somebody at Speaker's Corner, and they might be a good speaker and talking about something you care about. And you're walking around, you got a sandwich. You're like, fuck it, I'm going to sit down and listen to this person. Or maybe you don't agree with them, and you're like, I'm going to take a listen here. I'm a heckle. I'm going to do some heckling. Because you can heckle at Speaker's Corner too, right? Like there's not a no heckling rule at Speaker's Corner. And so that's the town square. It's a place. It's not data. It's not bits. And I think that gets lost in this. And I think a lot of this is some people need to do more of going outside and speaking to other people. This is like suggesting that your neighborhood bar where they're trying to sell you alcohol is actually the town square. And boy, let me tell you, you piss off the bartender. You ain't got no free speech or no nothing in that bar. That bartender wants you out. You're gone. The security wants that bartender runs the fucking show there, right? Like bartenders, like you got to leave, even if you think they're wrong. You just go because otherwise the patrons you're gonna have a problem with the fucking patrons, right? And
like really, what it sounds like to me that conservatives want is like essentially a social network run by the government where they can't ban you and can't remove any content unless it's illegal.
Right, but well, I think some people you might be able to infer that from some people, but then if the government did like eminent domain Twitter. Could you imagine these people losing their fucking minds?
Yeah, like I don't think that's actually what they would ever think that they want, but like what they're describing is that they just want something that the government can force some private company to allow everything except only illegal things. Like that's essentially what they say they want. And it's like, okay, well then the government runs that. Like if it's not the company deciding what's up there, if it's not the company deciding their terms of use, then it's just the government running that platform, right?
Right. But then I would be all for that, but then it should also be illegal to block anyone.
Yeah, I'd be all for a social network like that existing, because like it would show them how absolutely ridiculous and stupid that idea is. It would just be like, well, I mean, it would essentially be 4chan.
Right, that's what I'm saying. These people don't
It's just
spend a lot of
4chan
time.
already
These people don't spend a lot of time on 4chan and 8kun, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some of their viewers do, but they don't. Very uncouth.
If the argument is about, well, we must make people safe, then that will always necessitate more tyranny by default.
Of course.
And so I see, certainly in the UK, I wouldn't speak for Canada or the United States, a complete failure of quote unquote our side to make that argument that we are willing to sacrifice some, whatever safety means in the context of words, and that's a whole bunch of BS in my opinion anyway, whatever that means, that has a price. And there comes a point where too much safety means too much giving up of freedom, and we're not prepared to do that. We haven't been able to make that argument.
I agree with you, and I think one of the problems is that we approach that argument from the wrong end. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, I think we should start with the presumption that you're allowed to say anything you want, like anything you want. Now, what might the exceptions to that be? Well, here's one. If I go up to somebody on the sidewalk and say, give me your wallet or I'll stab you. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that crosses a line because now I'm threatening imminent violence. That's an assault. And it's okay for us to say, no, that's not allowed because it's violence.
Okay, so he does agree that there are limits on free speech.
Right. And again, this is happening on the sidewalk, not on somebody's data center, right? Like this is, this drives me mad. This is not analogous to the internet, and I don't know. I think that our side has done, and by our, I mean, I guess me to some extent, or people who are pushing back against these fucking, I guess they're like fucking free speech perverts or whatever, of explaining to them that this is like that's not the sidewalk. You're not in a public park, right?
Yeah.
Oh, public parks have rules too, though.
Yeah, city ordinances.
You
Yeah.
can say, well, what are there any other exceptions? And maybe yes, and maybe no. If you start at the harm end, I mean, there's all kinds of harm you do just by speaking that's in ways that are clearly
Anything serious.
anything
about
serious.
anything serious.
If you're campaigning to be elected to something, then you are trying to do harm to your opponent. You want to make them lose. Or if you are.
Well, no. This is like explain if you and me go bowling and I get a higher score that I've harmed you. This is some drama queen shit, right? Like,
yeah, this is ridiculous.
That's fucking hell.
This guy is like, I'm wondering at this point if he's even being serious, because this is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard.
You are running a commercial enterprise and you want to outsell your neighboring competitor. You're trying to do them harm. And if you succeed, you will do them harm. Maybe they go out of business. That's legit. You are allowed to cause people harm by your speech. Harm is not something that's prohibited. We have to get back to the idea that we live in the world and people succeed and they fail. And sometimes they fail because of what other people do. And too bad, because they're free. It's a free world. In a free world, you are going to be hurt by other people. Too bad.
Having a VPN you trust
is
extremely important.
Don't use ExpressVPN.
I love just on VPN.
I mean, don't use any VPN, but definitely not ExpressVPN.
How we get from protecting children against online exploitation, which apparently necessitates, as you pointed out, the construction of a very ill-defined expensive, and highly autonomous new administrative system, not bound, if I remember correctly, by normal rules of evidence.
Well, well, number one, that's absolutely true in the administrative realm, but it's also true in the human rights realm, right? So these commissions and tribunals, I sat on a tribunal for a while.
Yeah.
They look like sort of courts.
Yeah.
If you go into the room, it looks like it's set up like a courtroom.
Yeah.
You got a bench and somebody making a decision and witnesses and so on, but they're not courts.
But that you're describing a boardroom or the city council or fucking like a you're describing all kinds of rooms, sir. There are all kinds of rooms where there is a person who makes decisions and other people try to influence them and have discussions about that. This is you could be describing a knitting club. Whoever's the president of the fucking knitting club. They could be sitting in a room with the person who's making all the decisions, looking at everybody else and taking input from them and fucking making decisions about the knitting club. This who cares? This is just the formatting of a room that he was sitting in.
Because, well, for various reasons, they're created by governments, first of all. They're basically a part of the executive branch of government, even though they look like a court. But they don't adhere to normal rules of evidence.
Right.
And to what extent they do on any particular occasion might vary. It depends upon the rules of that particular tribunal. So, people have called them kangaroo courts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's deserved. Mm-hmm. But it's part of the trend of taking decisions away from courts and giving them to the executive branch of government. But mind you,
I feel like this guy just doesn't like any form of authority that doesn't agree with him.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of have you ever watched a TV show where they have a part of the TV show is a court case, right? Well, there's somebody there playing the judge. They're sitting, it looks like a courtroom on your TV, but yet there's no, none of the actors go to jail or, What a weird, I'm just so stuck on that. Well, it looks like a courtroom. Well, I don't fucking know. What if they shut down what if the city or the county builds a new courthouse, and then I take their old courthouse and turn it into a dance club, and the rooms still look like an old courtroom. The DJ's sitting where the judge would sit, and but nobody's getting sentenced to anything but a good time.
DJ Honorable sentences you to a good time.
Right. I'm just thinking of I know it's a dumb thing, and I try not to get hung up on individual things, but what you were saying too is that that this guy doesn't like authority, but these kinds of government agencies or whatever have authority in a specific area. And calling these things tribunals is really kind of loaded language, right? Because you might just call it a hearing in front of the EPA or whatever, This is calling it a tribunal. It just turns the temperature up unnecessarily, I think.
Yeah.
In recent years, as I've been saying, we are losing the law. Let me put it this way. We've been talking, you've been talking especially for a long time about how institutions in society have been compromised, been taken over by wokeism, by social justice, by critical theory, and so on. Well, the law is
for your disco that used to be a courthouse, you'd have to name it jury duty.
Yeah, maybe.
These social institutions, one of these public institutions. There's no reason why the law should be immune from all those factors as any other institution like government, like universities, like public schools, like media. It's happening to the law too. It's happening. Now, don't get me wrong. In Canada, we have some terrific judges, and we have cases that go the way they're supposed to, and they're heard the way they're supposed to with the proper rules of evidence and the proper analysis. And so this is not a black and white thing. But more and more, you are seeing from the courts evidence that the paradigm has changed or is changing from what a lot of people think in their heads is the way the law should work to what actually is the case now.
And what's the case now?
So,
such
let me give
as?
you an example.
Yeah.
So we have a section in our charter that says that everybody is equal under the law. They're entitled to equal protection under the law, which is what the U.S. Constitution says as well.
It took us a while to get there, but yes.
But over the past 40 years of charter jurisprudence by the Supreme Court of Canada, that section now means that people are not entitled to equal protection, that is equal treatment by the law. They're entitled to equal or equivalent outcomes between groups.
Wait, what?
Let me
Oh,
give you an
no.
example of perhaps the most recent important Supreme Court of Canada case on this idea. Many years ago, the RCMP created a job sharing plan wherein full-time members could combine with 2 or 3 other members to decide to work part-time. It was voluntary. People who worked part-time, if you want to work part-time and you're working full-time, then we're going to allow you to do that. And we're going to give you a pension as well. And the pension, if you're part-time, will be calculated in the same way that the pension is calculated for the full-time people, which is proportionate to the hours that you work. Okay? Voluntary. Over time, what happens? More women than men voluntarily sign up for the part-time work.
Right, of course.
And then at the end of the day, that means that more women than men have lower pensions than the men who are working full-time.
Yeah.
The program is challenged under Section 15(1) of the Charter. Supreme Court of Canada says unconstitutional.
By definition.
By definition, you can't have a voluntary equal program that results in different results for women than men. Okay?
That seems like it would make sense. Yeah, I would agree with that ruling.
Equal rules, voluntary program, open to everybody, treats everybody the same.
Yeah, so this guy doesn't think that laws can be racist, basically, or sexist, or, you know.
Right. And again, we're counting on his telling of the story, right? We're counting on him accurately conveying to us what happened here. And we don't know if, you know, there was pressure maybe on women to go part-time in some sort of way within the organization, right? That's just the first thing I thought of. We don't know. I'm not just going to make the declaration that there was, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like just because it sounded like a good idea didn't mean it was one. I don't know what to tell this guy. Like somebody somewhere decided, oh, this seemed like a good idea, but it doesn't. Actually, maybe it's not.
Yeah, and in the same way, like laws can be can like disproportionately affect like members of a particular race, and even though the law doesn't mention race, its outcome is racist. So yeah, that law should be unconstitutional, or you know, it should be
subject to modifications or whatever.
Yeah. Like, because that law is not providing equal protection. You know, that law is providing protection based on your race, even though the law doesn't particularly say it works that way. In reality, it does.
Right. These people spend a lot of time worrying about everybody's intent. And I feel like the courts, maybe by mandate in Canada, are looking at the outcomes. And the outcomes are disproportionate. Yeah, the outcomes aren't you know, offering everybody equal protection under the law or whatever, and therefore that's a problem. These people are like, well, nobody intended for it to be this way, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you know, people get into car crashes. They didn't intend to crash their car, but their car crashed. I mean, like,
nope,
not constitutional.
Oh boy, when was that ruling?
2019, I believe.
Oh yeah. That's a rough one. Okay, so how did we get from protecting
is it a rough one because he doesn't know how to deal with that female insanity?
Sexual exploitation with a gigantic, unnamed bureaucracy with indefinite rights and virtually no responsibility.
I want to soundboard that one.
To whatever the hell hateful speech is. I mean, first of all, we might ask ourselves, Constantine, you can weigh in here. I'm defenseless against that kind of female insanity. Ask ourselves, Constantine, you can weigh in here too, is like the whole notion of hateful speech. That's a troublesome one for me because there's obvious element of subjective judgment in it, like a clearly obvious one. And the problem for me is always, as soon as someone talks about hateful speech, isn't so much whether or not there are forms of speech that are detestable.
There are so many parts of our laws in both Canada and the U.S. that are subjective. Like his problem isn't the subjectivity of the law. His problem is that he disagrees with, like, you know, that people should be prohibited from spreading hate speech, because, like, he is a purveyor of hate speech. He wants to spread hate speech.
Right. It's
like, that's how he makes his money, is by spreading hate speech.
I was going to say it's part and parcel to his business model, but there's also, like, just things where there's subjectivity. Just like think about the difference between first and second degree murder, right? Well, it's kind of subjective whether or not somebody premeditated, right? Like, you have to make a judgment call on that, and that's like a pretty big fucking deal, actually. Like the difference in the U.S. between first and second degree murder, and I mean, I guess somebody's got to make a judgment call, and it's subjective. So you can't take subjectivity out of laws that impact large groups of people, because some shit's subjective.
Yep.
Listen to somebody say something detestable, perhaps sometimes in jest, which is a very interesting, variation of that possibility. But, like, who decides that it's hateful? On what grounds? Like, and why do you decide the people who are making that judgment? And then that problem's very much
generally amplified. It's we all agree that certain types of speech are hateful.
So in places,
and I know he doesn't like that, because he says a lot of those things, and he doesn't think that he's being hateful when he does. And I mean that genuinely. Like, he says transphobic things, and he doesn't think that it's hateful to be transphobic. And, like, we as a society have decided that transphobic speech is hateful. Because to most of us, it's obvious that it's hateful, but not to Jordy Pete here.
So a good example of this is Germany, right? There's stuff that the German government has just outlawed that you would be able to see on American Twitter, but would not be viewed in Germany. Grossly anti-Semitic things, denial of the facts of the Holocaust, those kinds of things that go back to something happened in Germany in the 20th century that maybe makes them a little touchy on that shit. And but that's pretty narrowly and cleanly defined, actually. Like, you can't, like, first of all, you can't walk around Berlin and Sieg Heil without getting punched in the face, which is, to Berlin's credit, I suppose. But, like, I think that lawmakers, when they have legislated around this, in the rare instances that they've, I think, done so fairly thoughtfully. And I think that, the laws in Germany are, for other countries, they may be overreaching, but again, with the history of Germany and the Third Reich and all that, it makes sense for them. And it's not this nebulous thing that is, like, loosely defined and can apply to anybody at any time. There are right-wing parties in Germany, and those are not outlawed. So that's just the kind of the best, cleanest example I can think of. Are the laws perfect? Probably not, but I mean, they felt like they had to do something, and they did. And I don't understand.
Like, for example, like, someone could talk about us being, like, leftists, and hate on us for being leftists all day long. And we're not going to call that hate speech. But if someone hates on you for being gay, because you have no control over that, that is, like, that's a protected class. That is hate speech.
Right. And
you know what I mean?
And in the US, they're free to say whatever they want, unless they're threatening and, like, credible threats of violence. But again, that doesn't necessarily extend to Instagram. Right? Like, Instagram could be like, well, that was a little over the top. Bye.
Yep. And it shouldn't extend to Instagram, because, again, Instagram is not the public square.
Right. Even though all your pictures on there are supposed to be square.
As this bill does, to anonymous
public, right?
denunciations.
Sure.
Right now, everybody, including every school child who's, like, older than 3, and maybe even at 3, understands that there's almost nothing worse than a snitch. And all children are wise enough to know that even if you are being bullied at school.
Is that the first lesson he learned?
Yeah.
Is snitches get stitches? Really?
I bet Jordan Peterson snitched on everybody in elementary school.
And maybe that's why he thinks everyone knows it, because like he was the class snitch.
Teacher, Sally has a booger. And the teacher's like, Jordan Peterson, it's not against the rules to have a booger.
And then
Has
none
to
of the
get
kids would
pretty
play
damn-
with him at recess.
Brutal and bad before going to report it to the authorities is acceptable or justifiable. Now, you can debate about the conditions under which that should or shouldn't occur. My point is that even kids know that even under dire circumstances, there's almost nothing worse than a snitch. And yet these bills...
Under dire
and I certainly know from
circumstances?
places-
Wait a minute. No. Kids probably learn that you shouldn't be fucking tattletaling on everybody for every little thing, but that if some kid is hurting another kid, that you should probably go get an adult, actually.
Yeah. Like there are times when it is good to tell an authority that something is going on. Absolutely. Like I would never tell my kid, like, don't ever go to authorities. That's stupid. Like that is genuinely like ridiculous. We should all ridicule that notion.
Right.
You should never teach a kid to never go to a figure of authority.
Right. And even as, generally people who have a negative view of policing in America, there are situations that people might get into where they have, their choices are, go to a imperfect and flawed law enforcement, or just keep getting punched in the face, or whatever it is that's going on, or allow, for example, they're talking about child abuse, just ignore child abuse that you believe or that is happening. And so then that's, it's a judgment call. Like this is, and the idea of a snitch is sort of like, it almost implies that you're doing it for your own personal benefit, I think, or at least that's the way that I think about it, that you would, snitching, right? You're generally, the idea is that you're doing it, maybe to get yourself out of trouble or whatever. I feel like there's some of that,
or to get someone else into trouble,
right? Somebody you don't like, maybe, or that you have a different conflict with, or who knows? But like, this is not yet. Nobody likes a tattletale, but that's a little bit different than, like you said, going to authority when it doesn't seem like you have any other choice.
Yeah, or to protect someone else,
right? Any number of circumstances where your choices aren't great, but the least bad one is to go to some version of authority.
Yeah, like if a kid is getting jumped behind the school, like you should go get a teacher.
Like
what kind of parent would tell their kid to not do that?
And yet these bills, and we certainly know from places like the Soviet Union, just exactly what happens, or East Germany, what happens when 1/3 of the citizens, which was the case in East Germany, become government informers. It's like trust's gone. The worst people have the upper hand. It's complete bloody catastrophe. Now, in Bill C-63, you have a concatenation of these problems. Okay, now hate speech is going to be constrained, and it can be identified by anonymous informants. Okay, so let's delve into that a little bit. If I got that right, first of all.
Well, yes, but let's just back up to your children point.
Yeah.
Right. So part of the problem is the premise, and the premise is widely accepted because we accept this premise generally now in society because this is where we're at. But the premise is that the government is responsible for keeping people safe, including the children. And that's ignoring the best mechanism we already have to keep children safe, which is their parents. Right?
But not if but some parents are abusive or neglectful, and it's like, oh, you did a bad thing to that child. Well, their parents didn't do anything about it, so I guess it's none of the government's business. No, sir. Actually, how is this guy even a fucking law professor?
Yeah, seriously. Like, I will agree that like the government is not the perfect solution to keeping kids safe, but like the government is better at it than like any and all parents.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're better at it than all parents, but like it's just a matter of.
Well, I mean, like the worst parent is much worse than like the government.
But it's also a matter of like the government putting guardrails in place, like, and then parents making decisions within the boundaries of those guardrails of what's legal. Like that's sort of how parenting has always worked, I think.
Yeah, like I don't think it should be illegal to like hit your kid with like a belt.
Ooh,
Like,
I do.
That kind of punishment shouldn't be legal.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said you didn't think it should be illegal. Yeah, it's child abuse.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend a lot of time here. Like this is this idea that like the parent always knows best. It's sort of some Moms for Liberty shit. It's sort of like when we watch the school board meetings, or I guess when I watch the school board meetings late on Tuesday night, these parents come, oh, why is the school trying to fucking help raise my kid? And it's like, well, I don't know, lady, you're at work.
But like the reason I picked like specifically hitting kids with belts is like that is such a common thing that like so many people would say is okay, even though like to me it's very obviously not okay. And I feel like that's when the government should step in, where like there is a group of people who for some reason think something is okay when it's like demonstrably harmful to the kid.
Right. And it's not like you're not ceding all of your parenting responsibility to the government in this case, right? You're just, the government is again saying, well, you can do pretty much, you can't do that. No. The government's saying no, like you're supposed to say to your kids when they, I don't know, want to eat a piece of cake before dinner. Except the cake is not that harmful and the belt is.
It's assuming that this is what this state is for. If you went up to somebody on the street, anybody at random, and you said, you know, do you think we should have an expansive administrative state? And by that, I mean, you know, all these government people who do all these things. They'll probably look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's what government is. That's what government's for. What do you mean? What does government do other than solve problems for society by making these rules and doing policy and so on? And we've lost the proposition that we've made a choice to have this large, overwhelming government tell us what to do in place of all of the other things we used to have. Individual decisions, families, communities, churches, all of the non-public institutions, and I mean government institutions. Government just rules the day now. And we're debating about whether or not the government has done this.
Is that better or worse than when the church ruled the day?
Right. I'm curious, like, and all those things still exist. You still make your own decisions. There's still churches. There's still, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all those things are still there.
Yeah. It's just like no one's going to like tell your kid to kill themselves on Facebook.
Right.
It's like, really? That's where you draw the line, is like you want to be able to tell trans kids to kill themselves on Facebook?
Right. Whereas the church used to do that instead of just a random stranger.
Yep.
Going to hell anyway, kid.
Well, the problem is the government's doing
Actually,
the
that's
job.
not true. Most churches are nice places.
The government, for my money, shouldn't be in this business.
They're nice
Shouldn't be in this
places
business.
if you're cis and straight.
I don't tend to agree. There are plenty of churches.
Some churches are nice places if you
there
are
are plenty
not,
of churches
not those
where
things.
there are plenty of churches where queer people are accepted in the church.
Letting speech for hateful impact.
Why not?
Because if we think we live in a free country, if the government's in this business, then we're wrong.
Wait, what?
So your point is something like that the cost of having the government offer all potential services, say in relationship to desire and safety, is that you lose all your autonomy and your freedom.
Well, let's back up. What rights should we have is where we should start. What rights do you have? If you're a free person, what does that mean?
Well, nothing, actually, and I think we're going to stop here because we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and I can't fucking take another minute of this. We live in mostly free societies. Like this free isn't an on-off switch, right? It's like a dimmer.
Yep. Yeah, where you draw the line is different to literally everyone in the world. So like there are 7 billion different definitions of free.
Right. There's like libertarians out there who don't necessarily agree with age of consent laws. There are socialists who think that, maybe personal liberty and personal property are fine, but that, that the government should prevent people from having private property. Those people are usually communists, but they think that that's freedom because now the workers are free. Like the word free doesn't actually fucking, it doesn't actually fucking mean anything. It just, in practice, it literally is open to interpretation, and that's fine, actually. That's certainly better than fucking two people, actually, because Constantine has only said 4 or 5 sentences. It's better than 2 people deciding what freedom means, and specifically what freedom means. So I like the people hash it out version a lot better than the on high version. And real quick, what do you think? I would pay to see what the fuck Jordan Peterson has been writing down during this.
I think he just doodles.
Oh, that's good.
I'd be interested to see his doodles, though.
I'm drawing pictures of
probably draws flowers and
benzos,
butterflies,
benzos, drawing pills.
Wouldn't it be hilarious though if he's pretending to take notes the whole time and then he shows the paper in the end and it's just a bunch of flowers and butterflies and trees and stuff?
I'd appreciate that, actually.
Yep.
I'd appreciate that. Well, that's the show. You want to read the show out?
All right. Thank you for joining us for the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. If you'd like to check out our other shows, you can do that at echoplexmedia.com. And if you want to support us, you can do that at eplex.store or patreon.com/Echoplex. If you're listening live, then right after the song you're about to hear, you can stick around and watch Red Light, which is where we change the color of the lights and the contents of our drinks. And if you're not listening live, maybe you should do that sometime. And this is Boomers by Periscope.